They didn't hand me a promotion. They handed me a loaded gun and smiled while I pulled the trigger, not knowing the bullet already had my name on it. My name is Nathan. I'm 35 years old, and until a few months ago, I genuinely believed in meritocracy. Do your job. Do it well. Keep your head down. Be loyal. And good things will come. That's the lie I told myself every day for 6 years. I worked at Halbridge Systems, a large software integration company known for its cutthroat politics and brutal deadlines. Think Silicon Valley without the hoodies and kombucha. My position, technical operations manager. I wasn't flashy. I didn't play golf with the VP or schmooze my way into boardroom meetings. I just got things done. My department respected me because I never asked them to do something I wouldn't do myself. We pulled long nights together, hit impossible deadlines together, won quiet victories no one clapped for, together. I wasn't trying to climb the corporate ladder. I just wanted to build solid things with solid people. My old boss, Gary, understood that. He was old school, believed in straight talk, accountability, and never blaming the team for bad leadership. When he retired suddenly due to health issues, I was genuinely sad to see him go. We weren't friends, but we had mutual respect. And in the corporate world, that's rarer than gold. Then came Marcus. On paper, Marcus was a dream hire, an MBA from a school I couldn't afford to drive past. 10 years of executive experience, a resume so polished it practically glowed. He walked in like he owned the place. Slick haircut, designer suits, toothpaste commercial smile. Everyone loved him at first. He was charismatic, sharp, always on. He brought big ideas and bigger promises, and he took a particular liking to me. Nathan, he said one morning, clapping me on the back like we were lifelong friends. You're exactly the kind of guy I want leading the charge. Solid, smart, zero ego. I nodded, flattered, skeptical but flattered. A week later, he called me into his glass-walled office. Nate, he said, I'm recommending you for project director. Just like that. No application, no interviews. Just an offer. My jaw nearly hit the floor. Project director? I asked. I thought Andrew from sales was, he's not the right fit, Marcus said, waving his hand. You're a builder, not a talker. I need a builder. And then he leaned in. I've been watching how you lead your team. You don't scream or stomp. You get results. That's leadership, Nate. I should have seen the signs. Too much praise, too much charm. Too fast. But after 6 years of being overlooked, overworked, and undercredited, I wanted to believe him. So I said yes. And for about 2 weeks, it felt like the best decision I'd ever made. The title came with more pay, a corner office, a small, sleek team of analysts and project leads. Marcus gave me full control of our biggest client, a government cybersecurity overhaul worth 7 figures, high stakes, high visibility, and I was in charge. But the moment I took the seat, the wheels started falling off. First came the missing documentation. Entire budget sheets were gone. Deadlines were moved up without notice. My access to financial records was under revision. Then came the team reshuffling. My best engineers were reallocated. My requests for additional staff were pending. Suddenly, I was running a multi-million-dollar project with half the resources. I went to Marcus. I said, we're hitting walls I didn't even know existed. Can we go over this with legal? He smiled, that same rehearsed, waxy smile. Nate, don't worry. This is just noise. You're doing great. Don't let bureaucracy shake your confidence. Translation, handle it yourself, and don't leave a paper trail. Still, I pressed on, worked late, took problems home, lost sleep, lost weight, but I wasn't going to fail. I couldn't. Then came the bombshell. One Thursday morning, HR emailed me. Subject, urgent, clarification needed on budget discrepancies. I opened the attached report, and there it was, my signature on a reallocation request for $380,000, a request I had never seen, never signed, never approved. I stared at the screen, heart pounding, mouth dry. I checked the system logs. Someone had logged in using my credentials at 2:13 a.m. on a Sunday from a VPN I didn't recognize. They forged it. Someone forged my signature, and I had a damn good guess who it was. I stormed into Marcus's office, held up the report. This isn't mine, I said. He leaned back, hands folded like a priest in confession. Nate, he said, you need to calm down. This is serious. You could be facing a full audit. I laughed. Short, bitter. You think I don't see what this is? He didn't blink. Let's not make this harder than it needs to be, he said. A pause, a smirk. Then, fall on this sword and I'll make sure you land softly. My blood turned to ice. There it was, the truth. The setup. He had been grooming me from day one, not to rise, but to fall. I didn't yell. Didn't throw the forged document in Marcus's face. Didn't storm out like some corporate martyr. I just looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time I saw him for what he was. Not a mentor, not a leader, not a visionary, just a coward in a suit hiding behind shiny teeth and HR speak. I left his office in silence. He probably thought I was stunned, crushed, maybe even ready to fold. Good, let him believe that. Because the last thing a man like Marcus expects from someone like me is a counterattack. Back in my office, I closed the door, closed the blinds, and opened my backup drive. You see, I might not be a player in the corporate chessboard, but I'm a technician, a systems guy, which means I understand one thing better than anyone else in that building: data. And if Marcus wanted to forge digital records, he was playing in my sandbox now. I started by checking the metadata on the PDF HR had sent. Bingo. The file was created using a PDF editor not installed on my machine, timestamp 2:13 a.m. on a Sunday. I cross-referenced that with the security logs I had quietly been pulling from our access control system. A habit I picked up after the first few red flags started popping up. No badge swipe, no desktop login from my station. Nothing. But guess who did badge in that night? Marcus. Next, I pulled archived emails from the project communication system. They were supposed to have been deleted after 30 days, but I had set up a shadow backup months ago, a habit born from paranoia and too many 2 a.m. change requests that mysteriously disappeared from official logs. And in those emails, I found gold. Conversations between Marcus and a contractor, codenamed Vendor 83, discussing how to restructure line items without raising flags. Translation: move money, move. Hide it, use me as the fall guy. By midnight, I had built a timeline. Every shady move, every signature that wasn't mine, every time Marcus adjusted a number and left me holding the bag. All documented, all backed up, all admissible. But information wasn't enough. I needed people. So I started making calls. Not loud ones, not panicked ones, just quiet, targeted conversations with people who'd seen things they didn't understand until now. Amanda from compliance, who'd once flagged an invoice that got mysteriously cleared. Hector in accounting, who told me over coffee that someone was routing expenses through dummy departments. Janice, my old tech support analyst, who had access to login records and owed me a favor. One by one, they confirmed what I suspected. Marcus had been doing this for a while, moving money, altering logs, setting up scapegoats, and every time he picked the same type of target: loyal, overworked, non-confrontational, people like me. But I wasn't just gathering allies. I was waking up a resistance, people who'd been stepped on, used, dismissed, people who'd been told to shut up and smile while Marcus made their lives hell. And suddenly they were angry, not just for me, for themselves. I spent a week building the case, printing backups, encrypting files, backing everything to a thumb drive hidden inside a hollowed out copy of The Art of War on my desk. I wasn't just planning to expose him, I was going to dismantle his entire illusion. I learned when the next executive budget meeting would take place. Marcus would be there, of course, ready to present the latest numbers, inflate his own success, and paint me as the reason the Q3 margins were dipping. But this time, I'd be ready. The night before the meeting, I barely slept. Not out of fear, out of anticipation, because tomorrow, Marcus was going to find out what it felt like to be blindsided. And I wasn't going to raise my voice. I was going to raise the truth. Executives love meetings. Not because they're productive, but because they get to sit in a glass room, sip coffee from mugs that cost more than my shoes, and talk about numbers like they're stories where they're always the hero. The quarterly financial review was held in the executive boardroom on the 14th floor, big glass table, 12 leather chairs, Panoramic skyline views. The whole setup screamed, important people make important decisions here. Marcus was already there when I arrived. He wore his signature navy suit, perfectly pressed shirt, that same plastic smile he always wore before a performance. He greeted the board like old friends, laughed at weak jokes, tapped his laptop, and projected his numbers on the big screen. Q3 was tough, he began. But we pivoted fast. Our leadership decisions saved the company over 400K. I felt my stomach turn. Leadership decisions? Huh. Translation. I screwed people over and it worked. He clicked to a chart showing budget reallocation for the CyberSec project, the one I was supposedly managing. Unfortunately, he said, voice grave, some oversights occurred under Nathan's supervision, but we're addressing them internally. I looked around the table. Some executives frowned, others nodded politely. A few gave me that look, the kind that says, sorry, man. Office politics. I took a sip of water, waited, let him dig deeper. Then came the part I had been waiting for. The 380K discrepancy in project funds is currently under review, Marcus said, sliding a printed document down the table toward the CFO. It appears there was a miscommunication in the approval process. Miscommunication. Cute. The CFO looked down, frowned. This is Nathan's signature? Marcus nodded. It matches the system log. I cleared my throat, loud enough for everyone to hear. Actually, I said, reaching into my briefcase, it doesn't. All eyes turned to me. I stood, calm, composed, and pulled out a folder, thick, labeled confidential CyberSec project access records. I handed copies to everyone at the table. Marcus froze. His eyes narrowed. Smile faded just slightly. What's this? The CFO asked. Everything, I said. Original metadata, security badge logs, shadow system backups, timeline of access, including the 2:13 a.m. login where that signature was added. Silence, real silence, not polite silence. The kind that hums, the kind that chokes the air out of a room, I continued. Also included are emails between Marcus and an outside contractor discussing how to reroute funds without alerting compliance. The legal officer leaned forward. Did you just say reroute funds? I nodded. 3 times across 2 quarters, Marcus finally spoke. This is nonsense, fabricated. Clearly, Nathan's trying to cover his... I held up a flash drive. Here's the server log with timestamps and IP addresses pulled from our own firewall. I smiled. It's not fabricated. It's your work. He opened his mouth to argue again, but this time, Amanda from compliance cut in. I remember flagging one of those invoices, she said, flipping through the pages. I was told it was approved by finance. But the signature was missing. Then Hector, from accounting. I got one of these too. Marcus told me Nathan had authorized the reallocation. Then Janice, from tech support. The login used to approve those changes came from a VPN located in Marcus's old apartment. I didn't think much of it at the time. And just like that, the room began to turn. Not in chaos, in precision, like dominoes falling, one by one, each voice validating the next. I didn't gloat, didn't smirk, didn't need to, because Marcus, he was unraveling in front of us. His words became scrambled. He tried to pull up counter documents, tried to call everything a misunderstanding, but the board was no longer listening to him. They were watching me. One of the VPs leaned in. Mr. Gray, he said to Marcus, do you have a reasonable explanation for any of this? Marcus looked around. For allies, for exits, for anything, and found none. When he said nothing, the CFO stood. We'll need to halt this meeting, call legal, and conduct a formal investigation. Marcus turned to me, eyes no longer smug, just scared. You set me up. I looked him in the eye. No, Marcus, I just didn't let you set me up. I walked out of that boardroom lighter than I'd ever felt. By the end of the week, Marcus was placed on indefinite leave. By the end of the month, he was quietly removed. No public scandal. No headlines, just silence. And the memory of a man who thought no one could touch him until the quietest guy in the room stood up and spoke. If you've ever been underestimated, if you've ever been set up by someone who thought you were too quiet to fight back, you're not alone. Hit subscribe for stories where the strong rise silently and justice lands loud. After Marcus was removed, the office felt different, quieter, calmer, like a storm had passed, and now all that was left was the rebuilding. People avoided talking about it, no gossip in the break room, no jokes by the water cooler. But they looked at me differently, not with pity, not with fear, with respect. The kind you don't ask for, the kind you earn. The kind that only comes after people see you fight a war no one else dared to face and walk out the other side still standing. The VP, who once called me too operational for upper management, he sent me a bottle of 18-year scotch. No note, didn't need one. The younger analysts, the ones who never made eye contact before, suddenly wanted to grab coffee and ask your thoughts. Even the CEO, who rarely acknowledged anyone below VP level, stopped me in the hall. You handled yourself well, Nathan. That took guts. I smiled, said thank you. Didn't bow, didn't shrink. I didn't owe anyone smallness anymore. For a while, I considered quitting, not out of fear, but out of clarity. Because once you see the underbelly of a machine, it's hard to pretend it's clean again. But I didn't quit, not yet, because I wasn't done building. 3 months after Marcus was removed, the company offered me a promotion, real promotion, not a setup, not a bait and switch, director of strategic systems, bigger title, bigger office, full autonomy over cross-departmental operations. I accepted, but with conditions. I chose my own team. I rewrote the reporting structure to eliminate silos. I implemented anonymous compliance reporting tied directly to legal, not to managers, because I wasn't just rising, I was changing the game. Some people called me paranoid. I called it being prepared. Once you've been set up to fall, you don't just walk taller, you build safety nets for others. Janice got a promotion. Hector got full control over budget approvals. Amanda now co-leads the audit team. We weren't just survivors, we were builders. And this time, we were building something that couldn't be corrupted so easily. I worked hard, not to prove anything, just because I love the work, love systems that function, love teams that trust, love leadership that doesn't demand fear to survive. Outside of work, I changed too. I slept better, laughed more, stopped questioning my gut. I rebuilt bridges with old friends I'd pushed away during the chaos, started hiking again, picked up guitar again, started living again. One night I found myself alone in the office, late. Lights dimmed. I sat at my desk looking out over the city, the same desk Marcus used to sit in, the same view he used to brag about. And I thought, he built a tower. I built a foundation. Because the truth is, revenge isn't fire and fury. It's peace, the kind that comes from knowing you didn't stoop, you didn't lie, you didn't burn others to win. You just stood tall and let the truth do the burning for you. There's a silence you earn after surviving the kind of storm that was meant to break you. Not the silence of emptiness, not the silence of defeat, but the silence of presence, of being so grounded in who you are that you no longer need to prove it to anyone. I used to think strength was volume. That being seen meant being loud, that being respected meant being feared, but now I know better. Strength isn't shouting in boardrooms. It's standing calm while the liars unravel. It's being so certain in your values, you let the truth do the talking. That's what Marcus never understood. He mistook kindness for weakness, patience for passivity, integrity for naivety. He thought I was the kind of man who'd bend because I didn't fight dirty. What he didn't know was that men like me, we don't break, we build, and we outlast. These days, I don't need to look over my shoulder. I don't worry about being liked in meetings. I don't play politics. I don't pretend to be smaller so someone else can feel bigger. I walk into a room and own my space, not with arrogance, but with the quiet certainty of someone who's been to hell and built a home there before walking out stronger than ever. I mentor now younger managers, analysts who remind me of who I was 6 years ago. They ask me, how did you survive it? And I tell them, by staying honest, by staying sharp, and by never forgetting that the long game always wins. Because it's true, the long game does win. And the ones who play it with integrity, they're the ones still standing when the smoke clears. Every once in a while, I hear Marcus's name in industry circles. A whisper here, a warning there. He's still trying to rebuild his image, still trying to play the game. But here's the thing. When you're known for lies, your words carry no weight. But when you're known for truth, you don't even have to speak. People remember, people respect, and no one dares to underestimate you again. I didn't seek revenge to prove a point. I didn't gather evidence to win. I did it because it was right. Because the cost of staying silent would have been losing myself. And that's a price I refuse to pay. So if you're sitting there, quiet, loyal, overlooked, wondering if anyone sees your worth, let me tell you something. You don't need validation from the wrong people. You don't need permission to rise. You don't need to burn bridges to build a future. Just keep building, keep showing up, keep doing it right. And when the time comes, let them feel the weight of your truth. Because when you finally stand, you won't have to shout. They'll hear you loud and clear. If you've ever been underestimated, if you've ever fought back with truth instead of noise, you're not alone. Hit subscribe, join a movement of quiet strength, bold justice, and people who rise without stepping on others.